Guys, hi. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome, everybody.
Hey.
So here we're coming back at you with another TNC talks a lot discussion time. I mean, this time the content's a little bit different though, because it's something that's near and dear to our hearts, and that is Cowboy Bebop. And honestly, yeah, Selena summed it up with one sound. I mean, like, versus our last one, like, just in comparison to like Neon Genesis Evangelion, I think it's pretty safe to say that like this is definitely going to be much more of like a love fest.
We're all biased.
Yeah, so there's not much objectivity going on here. The first thing I just wanted to do to start us off is like go through the little crediting stuff, try to do our part to be, I don't know, not bad at this. Obviously, we're talking about the anime, which was directed by Shinichiro Watanabe. We all also know that, too, because we love that.
That's because Shinichiro's that boy.
I mean, he is. I should have looked up if he did something before this, but, like, I think I know everything that's come after this. You know what I mean? And I always attribute this as being the beginning, but I don't know the history well enough. But anyways, it was by Sunrise Studio, was the studio who originally did it. It ran in Japan from April 3rd, 1998 to June 26th, 1998, which is kind of fascinating to me because that's so short. And it makes sense because I know there's not a lot of episodes, but that's such a quick
Yeah, like I said, I think
window.
it got canceled.
Well, you're probably right, honestly. In America, it was first broadcast on the inaugural night of Cartoon Network's Adult Swim on September 2nd, 2001 as the first anime on the block, which I didn't realize. Like, I think I knew that it was the first anime on Adult Swim. I did not realize that it was actually on their very first airing of Adult Swim.
I didn't either. I thought it was
Yes.
Did they even have Toonami when Adult Swim first started?
Yes, they did. They had the precursor to Adult Swim actually was Toonami Midnight Run,
Okay.
which the inaugural version of that was they would air Uncensored Gundam Wing.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that because I was pretty
midnight.
young.
Okay. See, Tim, you're kind of the expert on this because, like, yeah, Selena and I were both sort of too young.
I did hella vibe with Gundam Wing as a kid, so I do remember watching it a little bit.
Well, your dad loved that, didn't he?
Yeah, we like big robots.
Heck
Me
yeah.
and my dad.
This was also interesting, too, I wanted to mention. It was successful enough that it was broadcast regularly for 4 years on the Toonami block, and it has since been shown at least once a year, every year, since 2007 on Toonami. The other just interesting thing I want to mention, too, the Cowboy Bebop came out in 2 volumes as a manga. It was released in monthly Asuka Fantasy DX, which was like a sci-fi fantasy sort of manga, that was released, and that was created by Hajime Yatate, which I don't know if I knew that or not. But it was called,
I didn't know that.
It was called Cowboy Bebop Shooting Star, and it originally ran from September 18th, 1997 to June 18th, 1998. So, yeah, that's interesting to me. I
actually thought that Bebop didn't have. I've heard there being manga, but I thought it was like shit that came out after. I didn't realize it was based off of manga.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I thought too. So when I saw that from my extremely
I feel like a bad fan
well,
right now.
It kind of makes me want to go look it up though and like seek it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, and I figured when I was doing my light research on our extraordinarily reliable and airtight source, Wikipedia, I just couldn't help but bring it up. So, yeah, but that's enough of that. I figured, Tim, why don't we start with you? I was thinking, like, first thing we definitely need to do is just, like, talk about where we started with this show. You know what I mean? Like, first exposure, like, first impact you had, or it had on you, whatever. Take it, like, whatever you want.
Okay, well, I was there for that inaugural Adult Swim. That was my first exposure to it. What did you say? That was 2001? September 2nd, 2001? Yeah. That would have made me almost 13 at the time, just shy of 13. And that was the perfect age for this show, I think. I got into it right away. It was something that I looked forward to every week. And then when it was only, how long it was, I was just like, oh, that's disappointing that there's not more. But then I found out there was more in manga form, and I got that. I have since lost those books because we moved in between then and now, and I lost them in the move.
Oh.
Damn it! I was gonna say, can we borrow those? Can we even find them?
I'm sure you could find them somewhere. Not at my house.
Damn it!
Don't worry, Selena. We'll hop on Melcat immediately after this recording, and I'll have them to my doorstep.
Can't believe you, Tim. I don't want to be friends with you anymore.
Oh, if you're gonna get upset over me
Bebop.
losing the manga, you're gonna get more upset over me losing something else later on.
Oh God.
Sorry to interrupt, Tim. Go on.
Okay. Actually, I guess we'll get into that story right now. I was such a big fan of the show, and particularly of the music, that my first import that I ever bought was a Cowboy Bebop CD box, which was a limited edition thing of the soundtrack, but it's not the soundtrack as they were released. It was basically they would have little vignettes from the show, like clips from the show talking. Of course they were talking, but clips from the show, and then they would play songs around those clips. So like the first one.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the first one is from like and they go through the series, like through the entire series, in order.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
it was
so cool.
really
and
cool.
And of course, you're leading up to tell us that you freaking lost.
I
this,
have
didn't you?
lost
Bruh.
this. I was
Freaking
young.
animal.
I did not appreciate it as much as I should have. I didn't understand, limited edition box set import. To me, it was, hey, I have these cool CDs. But yeah, another thing lost. And something I beat myself up over every day.
It's okay. I sold my classic Robotech figurines at a garage sale when I was a kid, and I still want to go back into the past and punch my fucking 7-year-old self in the face.
Oh my.
Oh man, I'm gonna stop that immediately.
Yeah, we're gonna go off on a tangent.
Oh gosh. No, I meant I'm gonna stop you from going back in time and punching your 7-year-old self.
No, it's kind of funny.
It's kind of, well, I wonder if it'd be a felony, but no, never mind. Just because now you're an adult. That's a rabbit hole.
Well, who's going to catch her? The time police?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm an accomplice
All that's
now.
gonna happen is I'm gonna traumatize myself for life.
We're gonna have a butterfly effect on our hands, and she's like, the moment you do it, all of a sudden you're gonna be like a shell of yourself. Oh, good. Tim is.
She does that, all of a sudden her audio in this thing just becomes her screaming the entire time.
Or I'm gonna get really depressed and talk like Eeyore.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, I like Cowboy Bebop, you guys.
Life isn't worth living, though. Was there anything else, though, Tim? I don't just want to make sure about just, your impact. No, you said obviously you were there from day one, you got into it right away, but...
Yeah. I do happen to own 3 different versions of it.
Oh my goodness.
I have a VHS, or not a VHS, I have a DVD full series collection, which I am not sure of the legality of it. I'm not sure if it's a bootleg or not.
Interesting.
But for the sake of argument, we'll say it's not a bootleg. And I got that when I was right after it stopped airing on Cartoon Network is when I got it.
Okay.
So could definitely be a bootleg, not sure. But then I went and bought a legitimate copy when it came out on Blu-ray. And then people are going to make fun of me for this, because in retrospect it was kind of stupid to get this. But they had a anniversary collection thing that came out a couple of years ago now. And I bought that, and with it came with the series on DVD, or series on Blu-ray, an art book.
Ooh.
And
I'd get it for the art book too.
I haven't even cracked the art book open, actually.
Oh.
Don't lose it.
It's just kind of... I'm not going to. It's on display.
Oh, get him, Selena.
And it also came with the first soundtrack on vinyl.
Oh,
sick.
That's
worth it.
Yeah.
We all love the show enough that, that's justifiable.
Honestly, at that point, you could just sell your other Blu-ray collection because you kind of don't need it.
Yeah.
But knowing you probably won't.
Well, I'm leaving it closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Leave it sealed.
Hell yeah.
Selena,
See if it appreciates in value.
what about you? What was your first experience in, Impact and stuff like that?
So, before I ever watched the show, I watched the movie, and it's near and dear to me because It's probably the first anime movie I ever watched. My dad and I watched it together when I was like 8 years old. He's like, DBZ sucks. Watch this shit. And so, like, that's my dad. So we watched that together. I basically was like, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And Spike and Jet do be kind of hot though. And I mean, Faye too. Come on. Spike can walk in this room and finesse me like right now. But okay, that's not the point. We're not talking about my sexual awakening. We're talking about Anyway, so after it was many moons after that, like I don't think I watched the Bebop show until I was a teenager. Because I just couldn't find, like, I didn't realize they were playing it super late on Toonami. Because the time I watched anime on Toonami was like at fucking 5 in the morning. Where was I going? Oh, yeah, the show was awesome, and then I was obsessed with that, and then I started cosplaying as Faye Valentine, and it's like just all uphill from there. Or downhill, whichever one's better. I don't know. People argue about that.
Part of me wishes, like, obviously it's not an episode, but the pictures of you as Faye Valentine are my favorite, and I wish we could, I don't know if Wes wants to put one on or whatever.
Yeah, we can send one to Wes, I don't care.
It's just great, because it's just, I've seen you do it so many times, and I grew an appreciation for it, because when you first saw you cosplay, I didn't know the character,
right.
But then I grew to know the character, so then I was like, oh, I love that even more now. But... Well, that actually reminds me, something I forgot to mention at the beginning of this also is that, by the way, anybody listening, obviously we've seen this show in its fullness, and in order to sort of share our thoughts, we're going to talk about everything, so like, definitely going to have spoilers. If you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, I would highly recommend going and checking it out somewhere, somehow. It is available, I believe, through like Hulu, if you want to watch it.
Yeah, it's on Hulu.
So
don't be a weenie, go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it, because that way we just don't want to be, we're going to talk about whatever we freaking want. So just heads up there. Should have said that sooner, but whatever. I envy the both of you, by the way, because obviously this show is very seminal, and it hit both of you at early periods in your lives. And see, for me, it kind of is a bummer, because that wasn't the case for me. It's weird though, because like Selena first got me into anime in 2016, and I had known about the show just from what she told me, and because it had a funny name. Like, you just don't forget a name like that. And I mean, the first show I had watched was Your Lie in April, and once I got into anime, I knew that Cowboy Bebop was one that I should watch, because I had known how much she liked it. I'd known how much, how interesting it was, at least even as like a total outsider. So the first time I ever watched it was with Tim, and we watched it that fall, actually. So it was within like the first set of shows I'd ever seen. I think this would probably be like Cowboy Bebop for me was probably the 4th, maybe 5th show anime that I've ever watched. So it was still like early in my anime watching, but I mean, I was already like 20 years old at this point. So, be that as it may, we watched it together kind of in chunks over like a few months, and we finished it up in like the following spring. And I don't know, from the beginning, yeah, I was totally hooked on the show. So it wasn't like a surprise that we saw it through to the end, and I remember we were watching it, I just kept wanting to like watch more episodes. I just kind of remember Tim and I being there and just, you want to watch another one? I was like, yeah. Just kind of wanted to keep going with it. After that, I loved it enough that I got the Blu-ray too, and then I watched it again on the Blu-ray when I got it, kind of slowly by myself, and then I think I've only watched it 3 full times now, because I recently rewatched it in preparation for this, like last weekend.
I definitely watched it recently.
Yeah, so I
probably watch it like at least once a year, if not twice.
Honestly, it's such like it's so good to, it's such a show that you can do that with, you know what I mean? But I now, obviously, I don't know, it's like Love Fest time. What are the best parts of the show? Why is this, I guess I ask like all of us, like, why is this show so important? Why do we love it? Why is it such a big deal? Why is it worth talking about? You know what I mean? Like, what is it?
For me, it's the characters. It's a very character-driven show. And I like that, especially when the characters are hot and cool and do the shooty. My reasons for liking Bebop are both, like, I mean, there's, like, deep reasons, but then there's a lot of vapid reasons, too. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Give me a deep reason, though. What, you know, like, I'm here for that.
It's such, like, a somber show, like, underneath it all.
Yeah.
You know, all these characters just kind of, like, trying to live their lives not really knowing how to. Like, they're just doing their best. They just try to live out the shit as normal as possible, but it's kind of hard to do when you're a bounty hunter and you have a dark past, so
yeah.
I love that kind of shit.
What about you, Tim?
I love it because it's the structure of it is really amazing. How it's episodic, but it also has that underlying story throughout the entire thing.
Yeah. That
sometimes the underlying story doesn't come up in an episode at all, but there's always something there, you know. There's always something there, and I really like the characters are great. I love the voice acting. I actually just watched a retrospective. Yeah. I actually just watched a retrospective about the dubbing sessions, and according to at least one of the commentaries I listened to, they didn't really do an audition for the casting. They said, okay, here's who we think it should be. And it's awesome because the voice director for the American version, for the English version, I should say, she didn't have a whole lot of credit to her name at the point.
Okay.
She hadn't directed a whole lot, and she got all of these performances out of these people having not directed a whole lot and being kind of a greenhorn at it.
Well, she directed the shit out of it.
Exactly, yeah.
I just gotta say real quick, it's like, I mean, there's a couple anime shows that I'll only watch in English, and this is absolutely one of them. I watched it one time and they didn't have it in English. I can't remember. I think it was that bootleg DVD I got.
Yeah.
And they started talking in Japanese, and I noped the fuck out so quick because I didn't even want to know what Spike sounded like in Japanese. It would ruin me.
Well, see, I still love the Japanese voice acting cast, especially Faye's voice. She's one of my all-time favorite voice actors.
Okay.
Megumi Hayashibara. But she was real big in the 90s.
Okay.
And still up to this day, pretty much.
That's cool. I still won't watch it in Japanese, but I appreciate that someone has. Like,
well, it's you get a different experience. They're two different shows.
Right.
Watching them in the different languages, because the characteristics of the other, like the characteristics brought forth by the voice acting in the Japanese version, they're different characters. They're completely different characters.
Right.
Which is, I think, awesome and kind of not at the same time.
Yeah. That's why I haven't done it. That's why I haven't watched it in Japanese yet.
See, Tim, actually, I haven't. I would love to watch that retrospective you mentioned, and I haven't watched that, but it's very interesting you bring it up because I did watch or listen. I think it was a podcast. It was an interview with Steve Bloom, and he mentioned that he had no experience basically at the time, like going into it. So it's knowing that the director even was so green is extremely fascinating. It's like this was a perfect, storm. Mm-hmm. At just the right time that everything came together with these people, and that's incredible. And I think maybe that speaks to the source material, you know what I mean? Like maybe that speaks to what they were working with, because I think it's a very well written show, and like you said, Tim, it's just so, it's episodic, and yet there's that story that is such a strong through line like that you always end up with. Even in the episodes that are just there to come and go, there's always something building in terms of character development or the overarching narrative. So yeah, for me, the show, it's not really a surprise. I love the world that's built. It's just done so well. Yeah. It's done so effectively. It's so believable. It's so rich. And my recent watch of it, I already shared with you guys, but I watched it over the course of 3 days, and I was able to basically chunk it in like 4-hour sections. So and just having it on, I was more listening than watching, but still taking it in like that setting, it really like lit me up to the fact that even like all of the side characters are just so full of life.
Three old men.
The 3 old men.
I love those guys.
Even the little characters though that come in, like when Ein's episode is that stupid "my babies." We all know.
My babies.
We all remember the lady who owns the pet shop, or LeFou, the murderer guy that was, they were using him as part of the police, like that experiment that went wrong. So now he became that crazy assassin who was tormented and regressing. Like we all remember like that guy and stuff.
That shit was nuts. I remember because I felt like the first time I watched the episode, I was like, this episode seems very out of place.
Oh, and it's super macabre. But my point
was good.
It's like the world that they made is very believable. Like the 2071 universe that exists is just something that I really think you can sink your teeth into and just really get into. And it's funny because now that we're obviously recording this in 2020, and the only thing that makes me kind of sad is the thought that we probably aren't going to reach their level of technology in 2071.
No.
And obviously this show coming out in 98, I think maybe they were a little bit more optimistic about that. But it's funny because it makes me kind of sad because I don't know. I love the world that they made so much that I wish it would become real because it's just so believable. And especially, I think part of what's believable to it, I'll try not to go too much into it just because I could go on forever, but like, even like they're bounty hunters, obviously. They're the way that they are trying to get these people and the crimes these people are committing and the way these people are committing these crimes and the personalities of the people committing the crimes all just seem so real. They all just seem like, yeah, they would do this. Yeah, this would be the sort of thing they would do. This would be the means. Especially like the first episode for me, the way it opens, with the guy who's, trying to move Red Eye, that drug they have.
Yeah.
It's like, sure. Like, of course, they're gonna, he's gonna be like a planet hopper guy with this new drug that is, crazy and makes people into animals. I'm sure it would be developed. I'm sure it would become a huge like deal and like black market like just thing that's sold and moved around like that. It just feels like very grounded. That's what the show is, just very grounded in my opinion in the way that they go about those sorts of things.
Well, in that episode specifically too, I love that like the more he takes the drug, the more nuts and criminalistic he gets.
Yeah.
And it all just started out because him and his girl wanted to like live a better life on Mars. Yeah. And then it just like devolves into the way the episode ends where they just both die. They both get shot by the police. And then Spike has to go home and eat bell peppers and beef with no beef and just deal with that.
Well, that's the thing though, is I'm not a drug dealer, so I don't actually know, and I don't really know any drug dealers, but
I know a lot of drug dealers.
I'm just going off the assumption though that
like
I don't know.
Heads, I promise.
A lot of people, that's just like a really believable thing though. Mm-hmm. The reason they're got into that whole ordeal, the reason they're like sucked into that life is because they're trying to make a better life for themselves. It just happens to be that, they're in space, they're trying to travel to another planet, maybe another state if it was in our reality, maybe just, I don't know. I want to ask you guys too, what are our favorite episodes?
Ooh.
Do we have one particular episode that is just, or I mean, maybe we can even do two, because some of them are, arcing or whatever. There's like, but I don't know. What do you got, Tim?
Toys in the Attic has always been one of my favorites.
Refresh memory on that, because I'm not good.
Toys in the Attic is the one with the rock lobster. And the little blob.
Yeah, that one's good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that was nasty.
So much fun. It's such an episode that doesn't feel like it belongs initially, and then I feel like at least my most recent experience watching it, it's just again one of those. It's, I don't know, character stuff that you like, just a little bit of insight into them, more into them, without really having to overdo it in a way that's just really self-contained too.
Yeah. Well, it's the only episode in the entire series to only contain the 4 main characters.
Oh, really?
That's fascinating.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't.
I guess I haven't
that.
been paying attention.
How many times have you watched the show all the way through, Tim?
I want to say about 7, maybe, at least.
Okay. What about you, Selena?
I've lost count.
Oh, really?
I'll be real with you, yeah.
I mean, I figured it was a lot for both of you guys.
Well, I think about it, like, the first time I watched the show, I was in high school, and I've at least watched it once a year, every year since then.
Yeah. So
And then...
probably at least minimum of 10, I'm sure.
Minimum of 10, but probably more.
Yeah. What is your favorite episode?
Honestly, that's kind of a hard one. I always kind of default to Jupiter Jazz, the first episode. Because I just love it.
Yeah.
I honestly, that first episode is a banger. Like, that part where he fights against Asimov, I think his name is. When he fights against him and he, like, rips off that sombrero. Hooey! Like, that episode just pops off. And then, other than that, maybe, like, I love Heavy Metal Woman. That one's really good.
Yeah.
And a lot... Kind of cheating, but I count the movie as its own episode, so... If I ultimately had to pick a favorite, I'd say the movie.
I get that, though. I mean, that's...
It takes place in the middle of the series. I get that it's a movie, so it doesn't count, but...
No, but, I mean, to think of it as an episode, sure.
Yeah, it's just like a long episode.
Yeah, no, I totally vibe with that. No, I'm not trying to correct you, but the only reason I'm going to say this is because Jupiter Jazz is actually my favorite episode.
Okay.
But I think episode 1 is actually called Asteroid Blues.
Oh, yeah, it's Asteroid Blues. I messed it up. That's what I meant to say.
And like I said, I don't mean to correct you. The only reason is because Jupiter Jazz is that it's the episode where I think it's the first one you get insight into... No.
I'm bad with names, though.
It's in the middle of the it's in the middle of the series. It's not the first one where he meets...
It's episode 14.
Yeah, it's not the first time he meets, like, we get backstory for Spike, but it's the, it's where it goes a little bit deeper. It's the 2-episode, arc one, too. So they're, like, both of those sort of run together, but
I know which episode that is now. I fucked that up.
The, part of the reason, too, is, like, those episodes, the second one particularly, has my favorite song in the whole show, which is Space Lion. Which, like, we've all heard, even if you don't remember the name of it.
Rush is still my favorite song on that track, on the soundtrack. That first chase scene in the first episode.
Yeah.
The music that plays, that's my favorite.
For me, I love Jupiter Jazz because the way it ends, and it's just got that sense of melancholy, like, realization. Like, Selena, you mentioned at the beginning when we were talking about how, like, one of the reasons you like the show is because it's deep, and underneath these people are just trying to do their best and trying to live these lives. And that episode to me speaks to the heart of that so much because it's the reality. Like, the reason the show is so important for me too, and one of the reasons I love it especially is the way that these people discover that they're all longing for someone, but in the end, it's really each other. It's really like this companion piece about how, like, these people really only have one another, but their hearts are sort of all entangled in these other places and these other people, and trying to sort of, like, get through that. And that's why I love, like, at the end of it where Faye is, like, super... It's like our first time we see Faye sort of, like, really just down and depressed.
Right.
You know, because she's sort of, like, soaking in the reality of Julia and what Julia means to Spike and, like, that whole relationship. And it's so fascinating because it's like, you know...
They all are longing for something they can never have again.
But what they, like...
But then they don't look at what's right in front of them.
Yeah, and, like, Faye's attitude in that, to me, it's kind of like that sadness she has. I think, you know, she's feeling those, like, vibes of Julia, but part of me thinks that underlying there is sort of a love for Spike that she kind of has. I don't even mean, like, romantic. I just mean even just sort of like a brotherly, sisterly love that she has for Spike, or just this sort of, you know, as much as she gives him a hard time, obviously, it's like she's just got that sort of knack for doing. I think that there's part of that in there too, that she sort of realizes how important that Julia is to him.
Right. I think she just relates to that.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it also, because obviously we know her history and stuff too. But no, I bring all that up because that to me is like, you know, that whole vibe. Like the show has such a mood that is just, it's done so well. It's such a, it tells a story so effectively while also just giving, like, conveying these emotions. You know, it's able to convey emotions so effectively while also telling a narrative in a way that's sort of married into one. It's very, to me, it's very high art, and that's what I love about Cowboy Bebop. It's very successful in what it sets out to do, in my opinion.
Hell
But yeah, not to go on, but that's why like Jupiter Jazz is my favorite. I think, you know, I don't know, Tim. Any other like, I don't know, any other points of the show that you love? I don't know. Let's reminisce. Let's freaking just break into it. There's so many parts of the show I could go into, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loves Mushroom Samba.
Oh, yeah. That's a great episode.
It's a
Spike
very
going
good
up that
episode.
endless staircase.
But I actually liked another one of my favorite episodes is episode 10, Ganymede Elegy, which is the one where we go back to where Jet came from.
Yeah.
And he meets his old girlfriend and everything.
I like that at some point I had like the same hairstyle as her, so I'd watch that episode like, yeah, me and Jet totally used to date. Yeah, I like Jet.
But no, I
a
like-
lot.
Yeah, Jet's a great character, and I liked hearing some of his backstory. You know, not through his own words, but through somebody else's vision of him.
Yeah, that sort of outside perspective.
Oh, I gotta burp. It won't come out.
Oh no!
There's.
It's okay. I'll be fine.
In that similar vein, I really like the Faye episodes with her backstory, particularly how is it presented? It's like your first episode with Faye is where, like, learning about her backstory. It's not the one where she
Finds the VHS tape.
That's the one.
That's
it
the
is.
second one. No, there's two of them.
There's the one she travels back though too.
Yeah, I know there's the one where she and you'd think I'd know the names of these episodes, but I just don't. So
No, I know. And I wish I could remember them
Tim would
better
probably
too.
know. There's like the one episode where you follow her backstory and see like how she's cryogenically frozen and everything, and then there's another episode where she brings those VHS tapes to that guy to watch them.
Yeah, I don't know the VHS tapes one, but I think the one where we find her backstory is Hard Luck Woman.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah,
that's right.
That sounds right.
But you did remind me, Selena, because that's what I was trying to remember, and that's what I really love, is like you have the whatever in the sequence it is. The first one is where the videotapes show up, and then Spike and Jet have to they were trying to go, like, they end up getting like try to get the guy with the beta machine and stuff and all that, and then they get it delivered, and then you get to see the video, and that's it. I love that episode. The next one is where we actually get to see
No, it's the other way around.
where
The backstories first, and then the videotapes episode is after.
because there's another videotape episode too where Faye finally plays him for herself and goes over
Oh
him,
yeah,
and then
you're right.
she travels back. Because the one I do like the one where they break it open and you finally see the flashback, but I also freaking hate that episode because of the reality of it, of the fact that she was just being taken advantage of by this guy, and who was literally working with, who was the nephew of the sleazy doctor, who was just trying to be the extortionist that he is and take advantage of her. And like, obviously in the end you just find out that he's just a crummy loser of a guy when you think, you know, and it's obviously, it speaks to like the tragedy that is Faye, but
Yeah, that guy had major small pee-pee energy. I hated him.
But I love that arc and the way that then Faye finally like gets her memories back and ends up going back to Earth and finding the place that her house used to be on. And I just, that's for me, I love that so much too. I think I actually like Faye more as a character versus Jet when we learn backstory, just because of that. Like, I don't. And actually, part of the reason I love Faye so much, and I think Selena and I've talked about this in the past, but I don't know if you remember or not, Faye is actually I believe the way it sets up is like Faye was born in 94.
Yeah.
So Faye would have been just 1 year older than us.
Mm-hmm.
So Faye is quite literally our age. So
Yeah.
she would, like, if you and I woke up in Bebop world, it would literally be Faye. We would be Faye in a lot of ways.
I absolutely would be Faye.
Yeah, that for me vibes.
I have the outfit to prove it.
I think that's part of why I really like Faye a lot too, is because she was basically a teenager in the same sense that we were, and she went through that accident in, I think it was 2015, if I remember correctly, when I was looking up the years on it. But yeah, that's the thing about this show is I get so weird and nerdy about it because there's so much that I just love exploring in the way that they've wove everything together like this, you know? I did have one other thing that I wanted to ask, just because I figured it would be kind of interesting, but if there was one thing that you guys could change about the show, what would it be?
I wish it was longer. I wish there were more episodes.
Yeah, that's about all I can think of, too.
Everything else is perfect.
Very much wouldn't change much about this show if I could.
What if you had to? What if you were forced to change or critique one thing? And I guess the length... The length is probably still a justifiable answer. Like, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit, but I definitely, like, I think that's still a fair answer to have.
But the length isn't even that bad. I just want more, because I'm greedy. I think the length is perfect, honestly.
If I had to change one thing, I would actually change the last 2 episodes. I would make it longer. Selena, after my most recent watch, I kind of vibe really hard with your idea that the show was getting canceled.
Yeah?
Because I said I love Jupiter Jazz, and the reason I love Jupiter Jazz is because the 2 episodes are just so perfectly paced. I feel like what they set out to do in terms of setting you up with story and character development, they do so successfully, and they wrap up and end so successfully with those 2 episodes. In contrast to that, I think the final 2 episodes, I think they're wonderful. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not trying to poo-poo on any of it. I think it ends just super well, but the way it's paced doesn't feel as, like, extraordinarily well done as Jupiter Jazz. So I feel like if there was a bit more time to build up with those 2, like, maybe if they were, I don't know if it needs to be necessarily, like, spread out more, or if it needs to just sort of, like, marinate a bit more, but if I had to change something, I think that would literally be the only thing. Because actually, when I was rewatching it, I was obviously thinking about this podcast or whatever, this discussion. So I was thinking about, okay, what are some things if I thought that question myself, what would I change? And for, like, most of the show, I didn't have anything. I really couldn't think of something. But then when the ending did come, that sort of hit me a little bit. So I was like, oh, you know, maybe I would change this. Maybe I would give this some more time to just sort of simmer. Because that's the only thing I could really think of, is maybe it was getting canceled, and maybe they did wrap it up quick. Because even the last episode before those 2, which is Scratch, that whole, like, cult with the kid who's having a coma dream thing, that has a vibe that they're definitely ending it and they know it. Because that's also when what is the show they watch? The Roundup, the Bounty Hunter Roundup show. That's the episode where that also ends. It's like they're getting canceled, that show. And I couldn't help but wondering if maybe that's the writers, sort of being like just a humorous nod to the fact that they were getting canceled too. But I think they start setting up the end there, and then it's sort of, that's when the pace sort of picks up and you know that it's sort of coming to a close.
Also, I changed my mind. If I could change anything about Cowboy Bebop, it's Vicious's name. That's stupid. No one should be named Vicious, okay? I don't care how white your hair is and how evil you are. And how cool your bird is. Like, it was stupid. That's the only thing I would change.
I think they should just call him Sephiroth, because that's what they wanted to do, but they couldn't because copyright, because he's just a Sephiroth. I don't mean that as much as I do, but having played Final Fantasy VII now, I can't help but sort of make the comparisons, but I don't know. Vicious to me...
I like his character, I hate his name.
Tim, how do you feel about Vicious?
I thought Vicious was great.
Oh, I love Vicious. I just think his name's
dumb.
dumb.
Love the name. Love him. I don't love him, obviously. He's, supposed to be the villain, but...
Why don't you just marry him if you love him so much?
Okay.
Sorry, I'm 4, just like you with your Faye joke, okay?
Wow.
We're each allowed one.
We're each allowed one terrible joke. Hopefully that's like a greater allowance for the actual episodes we do, because boy do I make a lot of them. I liked Vicious, but maybe I wish Vicious had, I don't know, more time to get his own little development.
I do agree on that.
I think some parts of Vicious to me are like angry for the sake of being angry. There are moments where I'm like, you're just so angry, Vicious. I don't always feel like it's like, what is the word? Deserved? But I know, like, they do explain like what's going on with him. They do give that, like, it does make sense, and it's a crime syndicate. So, like, I get the fact that there's just there's animosity there. There's a situation that he can't get himself out of. So there's like, it's basically like a kill or be killed situation. So I get the motivation there. But maybe I just wish he had a little more time. Maybe I wish there was more redemption to him. I don't know. What are our final thoughts and feelings stuff? Tim, you want to take it away?
Sure. Watch this show. That's all I can really say is watch this show. Enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, I'm sorry for the recommendation, but it's one of my favorites of all time.
If you don't enjoy it, you're wrong. I've heard only one person tell me they didn't like Cowboy Bebop, and I told them it's okay to be wrong, bro. Just don't bring me into it. Like, he said he didn't like the animation, and I was like, "What do you watch, like Sword Art Online?"
His favorite animated show is Shin-Chan.
I like Rudy Tooty Shooty Boy and his gang of young ruffians. It's pretty cool. The show's always got me feeling some type of way. About to make me risk it all. And I don't even really know what to say that I haven't said already. So yeah, if you haven't watched it, watch it. And if you don't like it, just stop watching TV because you got no taste.
This hot take brought to you by... Oh, I love that.
I'm being aggressive.
I think for me, I love the show to pieces. I had a problem that I think still persists, where I watched the show so early in my anime watching that it ruined me. And I was on a search for probably a good year, maybe a year and a half, for finding like another show that was as just visceral for me as Cowboy Bebop. And it's funny because Selena and I have talked about it several times, but I think it's a reality that other people will probably have and do have when they watch this for the first time, if they take to it like we all have. Obviously, I highly recommend anybody watch it as well, even people who don't like anime, because this was the show that got my uncle, who at the time was already well into his 30s, maybe... He was probably in his mid to late 30s by the time this came out, but he saw this for the first time, and he has since become a major anime fan. This was like one of the shows that made him an anime fan, and he was already an adult at this point who had never even seen anything like that. And if you guys knew how, like, sort of, I wouldn't say like conservative is probably like, sounds like a political term, but if you knew how conservative my dad's side of the family can be when it comes to taste, I think it's just a good example of how this show can really impact somebody and give them a broader perspective in a way that they probably weren't expecting in terms of taste. So, yeah, I just think that the show is incredible, and for me, it's so emotional, it's so moody, it's very successful as art. It's very much for me like art, and I think that's what makes it so important. Is it's such an example of how animation, and specifically Japanese animation, is a medium of art, and how it can be used in a way that makes it becomes really evocative, and it can tell a story so successfully that it becomes something more.
For me, Cowboy Bebop was the beginning of my journey to eventually owning anime 5 anime body pillows, and I'm totally here for that.
It's the beginning of the obsession.
It's where it all started, baby.
Oh, man.
Excuse me.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Tim, tell the people where they can find us.
You can find us on this YouTube channel that you're watching this on right now. Or if you're listening to us as a podcast, you can find us on YouTube as T&C Gaming Times. Our logo is green, and it's the letter T, an ampersand, and the letter C.
I can't make it any clearer than that.
That was beautiful. Man, and so I just love throwing that on you, and until we get a Patreon, I guess we can't direct anybody anywhere else, which is, like, fine by me. Just funny. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Peace out.
I guess the last thing to say is, see you, Space Cowboy.
Oh, I didn't even think... See, this is why I'm not a real fan. I didn't even think to say that.
You said it perfectly, Tim.
It was good.
Bye, you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.